Yes, thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. Admins, learn to leverage the power of SOQL. My name is Louise Lockie, and in the working day, I'm head of CRM at a customer in this city. But out of the working hours, I'm a few other things. So I'm a Salesforce MVP. I co-lead the London Women in Technology community group. I co-host the MVP EMEA office hours. And I'm one of the co-organisers of this here event. So you may well ask me, why am I here talking to you about SOQL rather than running around outside, chasing the other speakers, making sure the keynote speaker's got everything she wants in her rider, green M&Ms I hear, and making sure, most importantly, that all the booze is chilled for the happy hour in a few short hours. Well, the reason is that I see SOQL as a skill for admins that will move you from being a beginner or intermediate type admin to an admin eloper or an advanced admin. And I see it as a key stepping stone to moving on your career. And so that's why I wanted to talk to everyone about it today. Okay, so let's start with, what is SOQL? So nice and easy. It is simply Salesforce Object Query Language. The language we use to query our Salesforce data, our Salesforce objects. Okay, straightforward. So that's fine. But, why are you talking to me about that today? Why is it relevant for admins? Isn't that just what developers use in their Apex? What's in it for me? So no, I'm going to tell you why I think that it is important for admins. And I'm going to put that into some buckets. So the first one is that I see you enables quick and easy access to your data. Now, I'm a fully confessed data geek. Before I worked with Salesforce, I worked on SQL databases and things like that. And big advocate of the platform, obviously love it, drunk the Kool-Aid years ago. But I sometimes find the reporting frustrating if I want to quick and easily, data crunch, get some numbers. Beautiful, pretty dashboards, but not so quick and easy when it comes to things like that. So picture the scenario. You've got someone who comes and suddenly looms over your shoulder and wants to know, how many have we got of this? What's this latest number? And you've got to think, okay, first, right, let me navigate to reports. Have I written this report recently, before? Can I find it? What is this person who's looming over my shoulder about to ask me? Because they might suddenly throw in that they want to also know something that's from a different object. We might have picked the wrong record type, wrong report type. We might actually suddenly think, oh, I'm going to have to quickly build a custom report type in order to keep on top of his requests, or hers. So we've all been in that situation, I'm sure. And this is a quick and easy way of getting at your data, and that's what I'll show you. The next reason is it can turn a shovel into a digger. So when we come to something like data loader, I'm sure we've all used it a zillion times, but you can, by applying SOQL to data loader, you can bring out data that you can't just bring out by using the standard interface of ticking and selecting the fields. So it can turn some of the tools you're already using into more effective tools. The next one is that I see it as a stepping stone to Apex. Now, I am by no means saying or suggesting that every admin will walk a path to a developer. I really, truly am not. I don't believe that's the case. But in order to work with our developer colleagues, in order to troubleshoot some issues in our orgs, being able to read SOQL is going to help you understand some of that Apex, because a lot of triggers and classes will have, if not all of them, will have some SOQL in there. So it can help you understand your org and understand your developer's code a lot easier. The next one is that it's simply, knowledge is power. We all love to learn something new, and Yes, it is a seller's market in the Salesforce ecosystem at the moment, and there's no shortage of jobs, but you still want to stand out from the crowd. You still want to add extra skills to your CV, maximise your skill set, and I see SOQL as something that can enable you to do that. And finally, because we're all here on a Friday, learning about new things. So we all like to learn new things. And SOQL is something new that you can learn and get your hands dirty with. And so that brings out the geek in me, and that makes me happy. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you feel the same. Now, another reason why I think it's a good thing to learn is that we've probably interacted with it a lot more than we think already. So, looking at data loader here, by selecting the fields and then adding some filters, we're generating SOQL there. We're not writing it ourselves, but we're using it, we're interacting with it. So it's going to be a lot more familiar than you may feel. And then even looking at Report Builder, you're doing the same thing. Date equals last year, cost less than £20, rating greater than 4. This is all logic that you then apply and use in SOQL. So it's not going to be the big unknown that you think it may be. So, I'm sure you're all convinced. Job done. So how and where do we do it? So starting with where. So I've highlighted 3 areas that we can comfortably use SOQL. Workbench, first of all, and that's where I'm going to show you my screenshots and little videos, because that's the place that I like to use it most. I find it very intuitive. You can see from that box there that it looks like data loader in that same way. So it really has stabilizers to help you get to that point when you're writing it yourself. It is, for those of you who don't know or haven't used it, it is a product that was developed by a Salesforce employee. It's not fully supported as part of the stack, but its URL is workbench.developerforce. So, it is very much part of it. You've probably seen it referenced in Trailhead, so it's about as endorsed as a non-Salesforce product can be. You just open a browser, you go to the URL, and you use your own login details to either a production, a developer or a sandbox. You can use any of them and use it, and you just put your credentials. It uses OAuth in there. The next is Developer Console, does very similar things, so it really is just about which environment you prefer to use. And you probably know that Developer Console, you open from within your Salesforce org, under your name and settings where you'd go to setup, you can open Developer Console there. And again, you can use that in a sandbox and in a developer environment as well as your production org. And then finally, data loader, as I mentioned, you can, we'll talk a bit more, you can apply SOQL directly to data loader to extend its use. Okay then, let's look at the how. So it starts off nice and simply. Every SOQL query needs a select and a from. So what we're saying is which fields do we want to see come out in the results of our query, and where are we taking them from? So in this example, this is a developer org in which I capture theatre trips that I've been on or would like to be on. So I have here select name, ID from play. Play is a custom object in my developer org, so it's __C. So the key things here, the capitalization and the spacing is just for the slide, so it doesn't need to be, it's all case insensitive. We have a comma between name and ID, because they are the fields that we're bringing out. But just like in a formula, you don't put a comma at the end after ID. So just like, again, in a formula, you don't put a comma in your last part, you don't here either. And the other thing to remember is always the API name, so in this case, it's __C. But just bear that in mind if some of the names of the fields you're using in your org don't match the API name exactly. Sometimes we've relabeled things over the years. Okay, so that's straightforward. So let's look at how that works. So here we are in Workbench. So I'm just typing select name, comma ID from play, press query, and there's my results. So it's taken 0.15 seconds to generate 505 results. But you saw how quickly that was me typing, quick and easy to get those results. That's super easy, isn't it? Now you've got the results just there, but you can produce a CSV from it and you can edit it in any different way. So let's add to that then. So here we've got the same, select name, comma ID, from play, where, date, and again, this is a custom field on a custom object, so it's __C equals last year. Now that's all really familiar to us, isn't it? That's the sort of thing we do in reports already. And so these date fields that we use at the moment, today, tomorrow, next 30 days, next 40 days, last 30 days, etc., all can be used in SOQL as well. So really handy and easy to use. So let's add to that further. So we're now saying, give me all the names and IDs from our play object, where the date was last year, and a rating, another custom field, is greater than 4. So things like the greater than symbol you're probably familiar with, but it's really super easy just to get a list of all of these different operators, but you've used them in formulas and validation rules before, I'm sure. So I'm saying I'd like the names and IDs of all my plays that I went to last year that I rated higher than 4. So just imagine typing that, really nice and quick and easy. Let's take that a step further. We're now saying where the date is last year and the rating was over 4, or the cost was less than £20. So again, another custom field, less than £20. So what I've done here is, just like you do in your field, in your logic for your report builders, it's the exact same theory here, exact same practice. You're saying and then you put in the brackets around it. So just think when you write a report and you say 1 and 3, 2 or 4, don't you? In your reports, you do that at the moment, and you put the brackets around the ors. So it's the same here. So let's have a look at that. That's better. Okay, copied and pasted what I've written to date, just to show you that of our query, and it's bringing out 4 results. So I want to validate that. So I am here writing, rating, cost. Let's add those fields in. Super quick and easy. So then I can look at the results. And you can see, okay, yep, they're all either 5 or the 4 is £12. So yeah, that fits. My report's correct. I've got the right data. Easy. So you can see how quickly you can just type in and add new fields. And here, let's validate it by taking out that criteria. Run it again. We can see we've generated 1 more result. And the reason why it didn't match the criteria before was because it was under 4, or under 5 rather, and it cost more than £20. So I can see that my results are correct. I've written the right query. So again, you can see how quickly you can play, you can bring in fields, you can take out fields. Okay, so we looked at a few of the operators. And there are lots of different operators. Now, I've got some resources at the end of the deck with lists and lists of them. But other really helpful things you can do. The count, I love the count. You can just type in the count for accounts and just get a list of the number of counters. So you're not getting a list of them, you're not writing a report and then waiting for the results to come out and then seeing how many is it showing like you would on Report Builder. It can just tell you this is the many accounts you've got in your org, or this is the number of plays you've got in your org. You might want to see a limited number in your results. So you can add limit. And if you put limit 3, it will just return 3 results. Now, if that's all you do, it'll just pick any 3 results and it will return those 3 results. But if you then follow that or proceed it by order by, you can say order by annual turnover ascending, or you'd probably want descending, wouldn't you? And so then you can see I want my top 10 accounts with their annual revenue. Other operators we've got here, in. So if you want to query on a list of values, then you use the in field and you can then put your results, the expected results, comma separated in a list. Equals I've shown you, and exclamation mark equals, I'm sure you're aware, is not equals. Like, so if you want to generate a list of all the Louises in your system, in your org, but some might spell it without an E because it's French and it's a man called Louis, then you can say like, L-O-U-I-S, and then put the percentage sign, and it will search for anyone with either Louis or Louise, or any other name that Louisa would come in that results. So it's really handy if you're not sure the spelling, or you want to say you want all companies that begin with Salesforce, and you want to bring all the rest of them out. You can put Salesforce and then put the percentage sign in. Other familiar operators such as sum, average, they're all in there. There are lots of lists, and in the resources, some of the resources I will show you will bring out and give you all of those. And I mentioned we had last year, you can add today, tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier. So there really is a lot you can do with it. Okay, so when it next gets clever is then you can bring in different objects. And this is where, when I mentioned earlier, someone's over your shoulder, they're asking you for a report, and bring in their account names as well, and do they have any contacts, and I want some other objects, and you're like, blast, this report I'm writing now, I haven't got all the objects in my report. I need to go and use a different report type. I've got to start from scratch. Guarantee everyone in this room has been in that position. So with SOQL, what we've looked at so far is I've just referenced this play object in my org, but you can reference other objects. So there's different ways of doing it. So when we are looking and we're querying up, so say we are reporting on our contact table, but we want to bring in values from our accounts table, a parent, we use dot notation, and that's what this is called here, because we're saying select ID and name from account, but then also accounts name, the name field from account. So that's how you can bring that in. So when you've heard people refer to dot notation before, that's what that means, account dot name. Okay, but then we might also want to look at other relationships. So I'm sure we've all got lots of lookup relationships in our orgs, and we know that if we're querying on one org and we're referencing the lookup relationship, we'll just get an ID. And I'll show you that here and how to remedy that. So here is the query we have to date. Copied and pasted again. Here it is. So I'm looking at my query, and I want to look at these reports that I'm writing. I want to look at the director of the plays that I liked best from last year. So I've run that in. I've added my __C because it's a custom field. I've just got the IDs. Not great, not that much use to me. So I can then turn that C into an R because it's a relationship and bring in the name. And now this makes a lot more sense. So that was just switching the C to an R for a relationship and and adding the dot name. Now it might seem that there's a lot of this to remember, and there kind of is, but it's just like learning something. Once you know, oh, that's a lookup, dot R, __R dot name, fine. You learn it and you know it and you can bring it in, and that is really useful. So that takes seconds to write that query, referencing different objects, and there are limits to the number you can reference, but they're really quite generous. I think it's 5 going up, So 5 from the dot notation going up, and I think it's something a lot higher for these relationships. So you really could traverse your org and get to different fields from different objects that you just simply can't do in Report Builder because you're not able to make a custom report with that many links in it. So this is what I did. This is the underscore underscore R, and then bringing in the dot name. So that's what the key bit to remember is the changing it from a C, because it's a custom field, to an R. Okay, the next one is when we are querying down, we want to build a subquery. So what we are doing here, and I've left my play object behind now and gone for something that I know we're all familiar with, is we've got select ID and name from account. But you notice I've left that comma in this time, and that's because we're having another value come out as well. So we are then subquerying select name and title from contacts. So we've got a list of accounts, ID and name from account, but then additionally, from those same accounts, we're going to bring out the name and title from our contacts table. So a list of all your accounts, and then with them, all of their contacts. So the key thing to remember on that is that the comma stays in, because it's the second of third lines. That's the key thing to remember. And the other is this S here. So because we are bringing in a subquery, we need to remember to use the plural name of the object. Now again, you're probably thinking, got to remember another thing. It's one of those rules. Once you remember it, once you know it, it just becomes natural. Write a few notes, rewatch this recording, look at my deck, and you'll remember it. So I'll show you what that looks like, just to give it some context. So what I've done here is I've switched out the fields, just the different ones, but what we've got all of our we've got accounts, their billing city, and then their contacts. So you can see, imagine this, I didn't want to put too much, any sensitive data in here. So you can see these results and how they are coming out. Really useful to get a list of all your accounts and a list of all their contacts like that. That's not, that doesn't look that neat in a report. Looking up at the top here, at the query that I've written, you'll see I've demonstrated a couple of things I mentioned earlier. So what we've got, select ID and billing city, and then select ID title from contacts, but overall from account, where the account status is open, and I've got brackets around my open because that's a text field or a pick list value. And then we ordered by name descending, and we've limited by 3. So that's just to use a working example of some of the things I've talked through, and you can see we've only got 3 results. So, tips and tricks to remember. One thing to do when you go into Workbench, before you can use the relational lookup between the objects, you just need to go into Settings and just tick that box. Allow SOQL parent relationship query. You do that one time, that's it, but it's just one of those things you need to remember. If you forget and you try to build a query that has a relationship in it, it'll just pop up an error saying you haven't enabled it. So it will remind you that's what you need to do. Don't forget to use the API names for objects and fields. Don't be afraid of dot notation. It changes the system from replicating what you're doing with reports to being able to do so much more in SOQL than I find you can in reports. Use the plural form from the from, so that's the contacts, not contact, when drilling down through the object relationships. So just remember a subquery, the from object needs to be plural. And if you go onto any of your custom objects, or any object in your org, it's always got a plural name as well that you can look up and check what it is. Apply single quotes when looking for pick list values or text fields. Includes and excludes work for multi-select pick lists. Can't believe I've mentioned that with Steve Moe in the building. But I showed you in, but then there's not in, but includes and excludes. Wildcard for SOQL is a percentage sign, as mentioned earlier, looking for all the Louises, aren't we all? And the key thing to remember is that you always need a select and you always need a from. One thing for anyone who's worked with SQL in the past is in SQL you can just do select asterisk and it brings out all results. You can't do that in SOQL. You have to list out each field you want. Okay, and then before I get kicked out, since I've been kicking at other people all day, these are my resources. I will, of course, share these slides and everything will be going on YouTube. But the top 4 blogs are great introductions to SOQL. We'll be covering a lot of what I've covered, but you'll be able to reference them back. Ben McCarthy's SOQL cheat sheet has got all of the operators and things like that in that. That's a really good reference. And if you pop a SOQL into Trailhead search box, you will see these 5. There might be more, but these are the 5 that I picked out. Trailhead badges that are good tasters. Some of them just mention SOQL in a couple of the parts of the modules, but there's a good way to get your hands dirty with it without with a bit of guidance. Okay, and I think I have no time for Q&A, so I thank you.